Whoa, well, here I go talking all over again and not hitting the go live button. But good evening, welcome. I've moved 90 degrees here on the Ekmont group. Kind of wore a hole down there. Is everybody hearing me? Can we? Am I coming through okay? Make sure that the mic's working. We've got the video working and the lights working. Am I coming through? Do you hear me? All right. So we're getting some responses there. Great. So to bring you up to date, we have been doing on Monday nights Civics 101, U.S. Government 101, Intro to U.S. Government. So that's all over. So now we're kind of getting into primarily prepping stuff. I was involved. I'm a moderator for one of the better channels on YouTube, a channel called Prepping with Sarge. Every Friday night at 6:45 Central, he does his live, and so he is a licensed trauma therapist, and he works with the municipal and county government agencies in South Carolina, and helps first responders who have been exposed to traumatic events get over that or try to normalize themselves afterwards. And so as I was thinking about that, and this is a subject that's near and dear to my heart. We've had him on once or twice. If these people who are extremely hardy, extremely prepared, extremely they have resigned themselves to the fact that they're going to be exposed to very traumatic incidents, whether it be firefighting and the loss of a friend, a compadre, whatever, or a police officer and some of the things that they have to be exposed to, or an EMT and some of the things that they have to be exposed to. I worked as an EMT for a while, and I tell you that you can't prepare yourself. Of course, adrenaline is there to help you through that situation when it happens, but as soon as the situation is over, then that adrenaline rush kind of goes down, and as that adrenaline rush goes away, so does your ability to handle emotionally the situation you've just been in. So that's something that's near and dear to my heart. So I think we need to have a discussion about that. And so I'm going to greet some people, and then after I greet you, then we're going to come back. I want to expose you to three of my favorite poems, and that are kind of relevant to this topic. I think you've heard these. I've recorded these in the past, so bear with me. But I think these are going to be critical for giving us a foundation for how are we going to deal with some of the poo-poo that we're going to be exposed to in our encounters in SHTF. South Florida DCL, good evening and welcome. Shenanigans, Sue Me and I have been chatting, and gosh, I tell you what, her dedication to her work is just unbelievable. She's a nurse. Diana, too, welcome. Good evening. And I see you're blue. Little Lone Prepper, good evening. Shenanigans. I already said. Cats and Prepping, good evening. Little Lone Prepper, Kaylin Strain. Triple G, good evening. Let me see. Anybody else? South Florida DCL. Oh, me. Utah Mike. Utah Mike, was it Utah Mike? No, Theoxerus. Theoxerus sent me a channel to look into that was really great. If he's here this evening, I'd like to have him put that link up for everybody. He's found a really great channel. I listened to it for about an hour today. Right now, this is atrocious. I have tomorrow morning, I'm taking a class at the church on how to be a great grandparent. Not great in the sense of one echelon above a grandparent, just how to be a good grandparent. How's that? So I'm taking that. So I have to get this read. Thursday is our last session on the book of Mark. So I have to read the book of Mark again. And we've been reading the book of Mark once a week for the last 6 weeks. So I've got that going. We've got this coming up this Thursday evening. So I've got to catch up on that. Then I've got, this one. This is, I'm taking both the technician and the general license test a week from Saturday. So I've got to make sure I get all that taken care of. So I've been quite busy with all this stuff as far as just keeping myself busy, mandatory reading and not having too much time to do anything else. And then, of course, my oldest Chihuahua, Isabella, she's 15. Her back is going out, and her two hind legs at times don't work. So I had to take her today and get her a equivalent to a doggy cortisone shot in her back spine and hip, and try to get all that taken care of. She's just trying to. So the doctor told me the bad news is it's going to be about $200 a month for the rest of her life to keep her walking. So that's going to be kind of, I can see how I can come up with that kind of money. Mother Earth Garden Club, good evening. Oh, wow. Okay, look, here's what I'm going to do, Mother Earth. Here's what I will do. I'm going to send an invite here, and if you would like to come on and help me discuss this challenging topic, please click on it, and I would be more than happy to bring you on so that you can help us with this. Grateful every day, Sandy Aaron, good evening. Let me see who else. Prepping. Oh, there he is. Prepping with Sarge. Did you hear me talking about you? Is that the reason? Was your ear itching or something, and you decided to come on? Let me see. Do I have you as a? Let me see. I can't do that here. I was telling people about tonight is inspired by your Friday night discussion and on how working with first responders that if they are that well prepared for what they're going to be facing and yet still have to have you help them through some of the trauma that they've seen, how are we as individuals going to prepare ourselves for what's coming? So there is a link down below, Sarge, if you would like to click on it and join us in this discussion. I would greatly, greatly appreciate that because you are, in my opinion, the guy. So here's the, let me see if I can put it where we can put it up here, I believe. Oh, I know where I do it. I can do it in banners. That's where I can do it. So we're going to do right here. No, we want to do that. I've got from my last book club meeting here. Sounds good. Thank you. But anyhow, so let me start off with a couple of my favorite poems, and I think this is going to kind of set the mood for what we need to do as individuals to prepare for this. So the first one is by a guy by the name of Walter D. Wintle. I don't know if you've heard of him or not, but it's called The Man Who Thinks He Can. If you think you are beaten, you are. If you think you dare not, you don't. If you like to win, but you think that you can't, it's almost certain you won't. If you think you'll lose, you're lost. For out of the world we find, success begins with a fellow's will. It's all in the state of mind. If you think you're outclassed, you are. You've got to think high to rise. You've got to be sure of yourself before you can ever win a prize. Life's battles don't always go to the strongest or fastest man, but soon or late, the man who wins is the man who thinks he can. So that's Walter D. Wintle. And, I think that's probably the best all-round thing. And that is we have got to get our minds right now before it happens. I almost lost it with 9/11. And I've seen some pretty bad things, but that just caught me totally off guard. And so we know that things are going bad right now. I mean, there's thousands of channels out there that tell you on a daily basis what is going on out there and what we can expect. But I don't think they really give it justice. I think it's going to be a lot more traumatic, a lot more captivating, a lot more debilitating than what we are leading it to be. When I see severe emotional trauma, I always go back to The Patriot, that movie. And there's one of the guys there who is fighting with the Patriots against the British, and well, I should say against the British Crown. They were all British, and he goes They go back to his area, and his house has been burnt down, and his family's been killed, and he doesn't have anything left to live for. So he decides that he doesn't have anything left to live for. But I think what we need to do is we need to get in that frame of mind now that no matter what, we have something to live for. We have our family, and we have society. We have an opportunity under the most austere conditions to rebuild, to build better, to make it better, to take the lessons that we have learned in life and apply those so that we can share that and be the strength, the arm, the support for others. Because if we're going to have to be the strong people, those other people won't be there. Hello, Mother Earth, welcome. So we've got you up there. Let me see if we can hear you.
Can you hear me?
Absolutely. Fantastic. Hello, Gil. Welcome. Good evening. Good to see you. So let me give you another one of my favorite poems, and this one's called Abu Ben Adam. And this is going to give you basically my theory about my relationship with my fellow man. Oh, hello, Gil. Welcome. Good evening.
Hey.
This is Abu Ben Adam by James Henry Lee Hunt. Abu Ben Adam made his tribe increase, awoke one night in a deep dream of peace, and saw within the moonlight in his room, making it rich and like a lily in bloom, an angel writing in a book of gold. Exceeding pace had made Ben Adam bold, and to the presence in the room he said, "What writest thou?" The vision raised its head, and with a look made of all sweet accord, answered, "The names of those who love the Lord." "And is mine one?" asked Abu. "Nay, not so," replied the angel. And Abu spoke more low, but cheerily still, and said, "I pray thee then, write me as one that loves his fellow men." The angel wrote and vanished, and the next night it came again with a great awakening light, and showed the names whom love of God had blessed, and lo, Ben Adam's name led all the rest. So I think the thing there is, what are we going to do to help our fellow man? How can we be that bulwark? How can we be that pillar? How can we be that shoulder, that arm that we can hand out to others to help them up? Now, I'm going to tell you my personal opinion, and Mother Earth, I'm sure you're going to tell me your opinion here in just a minute, because my opinion is I can't do it alone. I can't be that pillar for you without you being a pillar for me. And so we're going to have to help each other through this. I may at times be the stronger person giving you support, but there are going to be times when you're going to be the stronger person giving me support. So we have to develop a symbiotic relationship. We have to develop that trust. We have to develop that courage. We have to develop that love between ourselves and that respect that says we will survive and we will survive together. So am I off the cue ball on that one, Mother Earth, or what do you think?
No, I do think that you have to work together as a team, and like you said, sometimes one is strong and the other isn't. But I also think that we have to be very careful that we're not judging people, because sometimes we don't know where they're coming from, and if we did know, maybe we would be more understanding. We probably should reserve judgment.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. I don't like it when people judge me. And, I always tell them, you don't know me. How can you judge me? So yes, absolutely great advice. Gil, your thoughts?
Well, I'm going to answer with a different poem. Okay.
Okay.
The best laid schemes of mice and men go off the stray, and leave us not but pain and sorrow for promised joy. So if you think you're going to do it by yourself and plan it all out, you can count on things going Another phrase, this is also is used in you. Well, you should know it's used in a lot of the military academies for tagged with the other thing is no plan survives contact with the enemy.
Absolutely.
And to me, the best laid plans of mice, or best laid schemes of mice and men, is you're forgetting the third person.
Yes, absolutely.
Yep.
And so no matter what you do, you want to be, if you're in a bad situation, don't forget where you came from.
Well, and that's a very important part. I want to really focus on that for the second half of this evening, because I think that having faith in something, and I have my personal religious beliefs, and I know everybody has their own personal religious beliefs, but you have to believe in something bigger than you in order to have to foment a sense of hope. And I think that without hope, we can't really say that we want to survive. We have to hope for something better in order to be willing to survive. Okay, the last poem I want to go with is Rudyard Kipling's famous one. Now, remember, this was a Brit in India. And so the name of the poem is just 2 letters, I-F, if. If you can keep your head when all about you are losing theirs and blaming it on you, if you can trust yourself when all men doubt you, but make allowance for their doubting too, if you can wait and not be tired by waiting or being lied about, don't deal in lies, or being hated, don't give way to hating, and yet don't look too good nor talk too wise. If you can dream and not make dreams your master, if you can think and not make thoughts your aim, if you can meet with triumph and disaster and treat those 2 impostors just the same, if you can bear to hear the truth you've spoken twisted by knaves to make a trap for fools, or watch the things you gave your life to broken and stoop and build them up with worn out tools, if you can make one heap of all your winnings and risk it on one turn of pitch and toss, and lose and start again at your beginnings and never breathe a word about your loss, if you can force your heart and nerve and sinew to serve your long turn after they are gone, and so hold on when there is nothing in you except the will which bids you say, hold on. If you can talk with crowds and keep your virtue, or walk with kings and not lose the common touch, if neither foes nor loving friends can hurt you, if all men count with you, but none count on you too much, if you can fill the unforgiving minute with 60 seconds worth of distance run, yours is the earth and everything that's in it, and which is more, you'll be a man, my son. So that's Rudyard Kipling's take on it, but I want to focus on all 3 of those, and notice that all 3 of them say, basically, don't give up, love your fellow man for who they are and what they are, a creature created by somebody bigger than we are, and that we are all here in this, and I'm going to call it a diaspora. We say a prayer in our church that we talk about us being in exile here on earth, an exile away from heaven. And, if you can acknowledge that we're all creatures of God, and we're trying to get back to him together, then, and have that sense of camaraderie, that sense of brotherly love, I think that's what's most important. And that's what's going to get us through. So treat people with respect, dignity, and make sure that you're leaning with them and providing some sort of inspiration to them so that they can have the will to carry on. Carry on, my wayward son. Oh, that's a good one.
Yeah. Okay, now I got the song stuck in my mind. I just wanted to burst out and do the a cappella part of that song just all of a sudden. And now I had a rabbit moment and I forgot what I was going to say.
You've had a Lee moment?
No. Let me replay it, go backwards in my mind, rewind. Shoot, it was. There were two things. One of the things is if you looking at from the Old Testament, and I'm trying to remember the verse, and where God said, or God speaking to one of the prophets, he goes, Before you were born, I knew thee. Before you were anointed. So basically, saying you were with me before you came to this world.
Mm-hmm.
I know you. All right, it's right there. It's like, oh, pre-existence. We existed with God before we came here. Interesting. One of the things that we believe in our church is that this mortality is a school. You're here to learn what it's like to have a physical body. Because as spirit children, we didn't have physical bodies. There are certain things you can't learn without, doing it. And there are certain things. And one of the things we're here to learn was faith. That is not knowing for sure, positive, nothing doubting what it was like to be with God. That's been blocked from our spirit's memory. So we have to learn faith, and we got to learn to act upon it. However, we're not supposed to be totally 100%. I'm going to let anybody else do whatever they're going to do to me, and because I have faith. Because faith is an action word. And you look all through both the Old Testament and the New Testament. Rose, turn the other cheek, but only a certain number of times.
I have another take on that. Turn the other cheek, but I want to hear from Mother Earth first.
Yeah. So for that, it's like you turn the other cheek so many times. After that, it's like Christ said, "Sell your cloak and buy yourself a sword." There, and you look at the Joshua, Old Testament, get out. No, you're not going to get out. Okay, we're going to throw you out. So there's there is the thing. Give a person the chance to show that they are deserving of help. And that's I remember what I was going to say is you want to give a hand up, not a hand out.
Yes, absolutely.
Exactly. And I think it's real important to remember that if you're more like the willow than the oak, and you bend and don't break, you relax and let people understand, try to figure out what they're trying to tell you or what they're trying to say. I've dealt with so many people that they would come to us so confused, because schizophrenia particularly is one of those illnesses that they're very confused. And if you listen carefully, there's a grain of truth in what they're saying. And you just listen and you just be still and let them talk. And just the act of talking and listening comforts them, calms them, and helps them start to heal. So you've got to remember to do that. Very, very important. It was one of the reasons I think the older nurses were actually less likely to be assaulted, because we were just calmer and quieter and better listeners. So I think that was it was super important for us to just be there in the moment with the person, even if they weren't making a ton of sense at the moment, or even if they were angry, and they'd come in angry often. They're being confined and sometimes against their will. So yes, they're angry. And all you have to say, yes, I understand you're angry. How can I help?
And so let's take a scenario that let's have another catastrophic event, and this is all hypothetical, like 9/11. Okay, and so there are people who are now stupefied and in danger of, well, they're in danger, but they're in that frozen moment, And how do we help them to move beyond the frozen and even into the rejection stage of that trauma? But how do we get them to realize that they can't do nothing? They have to do something. So how do we impose that upon them?
Well, first of all, there's one thing about people that are in the frozen state to be very aware of, and as we worked with patients, we thought they are not actually frozen inside. Inside their minds, everything's going 100 miles an hour. There's very often a possibility that they'll strike out. So you got to be a little careful.
Okay.
Give them a little space so that you are safe. And then talk in a very calm voice, slow, direct instructions. If you want someone to say, go to the stairwell and walk down, say it like I just said it. Go to the stairwell and walk down. Simple, direct, calm, and slow. They can't hear things. And if you hurry up, go run over to do this, they won't be able to do it. They can't do it.
What about our physical? Are there physical things we can do that are going to be supportive of our words and tone that would help a person who's in that frozen state?
You can reach for them. Don't touch them without them giving permission, but you can reach for them and encourage them to reach back if you can. Like I said, inside their mind, everything is going at 100 miles an hour, and you have to get them into a calmer state. So work as close and as calm as you can get, but without touching. Sometimes just keeping your face still. If there's an emergency situation, we've had terrible emergency situations in the hospital, people getting assaulted and stuff, awful situations, people dying, killing themselves, such as that. But you act, it kind of reminds me of like a mother hen gathers the little forces around her and just does it and walks people away real carefully and calmly and protective, and do it that way. And like I said, if you're in a really stressful situation with another human being that you don't know, or even one that you do, but they appear to be like in a state of utter panic, be very careful, because you can get injured, because not that they mean to injure, but out of fright and fear, they strike out. So keep enough distance so that if they do take a swing, you're out of their reach. But like I said, my voice is very calming anyway, so they would always send me into these situations, so I would talk people down easily. I think that came from the practice of having an autistic child, who's now 50 some years old. So, but you had to use that same tone of voice to calm him down, and it works for most people. Now, not 100%, because we're not all the same, but it does help. Direct instructions, simple instructions. That's the best way to do it. And then be safe yourself so that you could help them. Seriously, you have to be safe yourself before you can help them.
Now let's turn that window pane around and turn it into a mirror.
Okay.
We may not even recognize that we are in a state of panic or in a state of confusion or in a frozen state.
Exactly.
What can we do to self-diagnose and self-heal so that we don't become an impediment to others?
That's a tough one, because if you don't recognize it, it's really difficult. When I worked as a nurse, we were in situations like this literally many times a week. This is not an unusual thing. We actually practiced when we were not in a situation, and that would be true of anybody right now. If you're in a calm place at your home, practice. okay, it's a bad situation. How do I deal with it? Practice slow breathing. Practice how to make yourself feel better in the moment. Practice how to relax. And it does work. Then
Yeah.
when you're in the situation, it helps that you've had some practice.
And I'm going to get this wrong. I am quite certain. Let me check my notes. But Sarge says that he uses a countdown from 5 technique, especially when he's dealing with PTSD. And let's see if I have it. No, I don't. I don't know where I wrote it. But I think it's 5 things I see. So start listing 5 things I see, 4 things I hear. But you want to involve all of your sentences. And I may get these wrong, but and then 3 things that you feel, and 2 things that I forget what the second what that one is, but the one, and then 1 thing I smell. So you go through all 5 of your senses, and you're trying to list and put you back into a reality of your actual environment and get all of your senses involved. And by doing that, then you're reincorporating your brain into assessing where you are and what's going on around you.
By concentrating on those 5 things that he listed, you actually are bringing your brain back down quiet so that you can actually think. It requires some practice, and he probably practices that when he is not in a situation. But I've listened to some of your videos with him. He is a smart man. He's really got it. He's good. And I've taken care of a lot of nurses, a lot of police officers, a lot of people from foreign countries that were victims of torture, and some of the things that these people lived through, so horrendous that you have to be, it's really difficult to get them to a calm state, but you have to keep working with them slowly, little bit by little bit. And then when you get them in a calm state, then you teach them how to self-heal.
Okay.
You have to teach them how to self-heal, just like Sarge was talking about the 5 things in his case. You teach them how to self-heal, how to stop how to bring yourself out of a panic attack, for instance.
So there's a theory that when something happens, something catastrophic, something traumatic, we don't rise to the level of our expectations, but rather we sink to the level of our training, and it becomes autonomic.
I was looking for something here from when I went to the police academy, and it's on that. It's like in under stress. I remember what it was a model for our academy class. Basically, under stress, in an emergency, we revert to the way we were trained.
But you have to train well enough to where it becomes autonomic.
Yeah, and when it comes to training, everyone used to say, practice till you get it right. No, practice until you can't get it wrong.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Because then, if everything goes, it's like, well, you're automatically going to do it right because you've practiced till you can't do it wrong. And in this talking about a scenario here, whatever the scenario is, there's going to be different things that affect people differently. One of the things I learned doing conflict management was sometimes you need to shock the person out of their shock. So, like, all right, they're in a building. Buildings, something's happened to the building's on fire. Smoke. Oh no, I don't know what they're doing. It's like, hey, get that person, take them downstairs. You give them a task. You shock them with a hey, and get that person, get them downstairs. Give them a job to do. That way, they now are task oriented, and so basically, you got them to save themselves and that other person.
Again, that's one of the things that when you do that shock thing, and that's fine, it would work. But then the next instruction you give them is a very simple one. You don't give them like 17 things. You give them one step at a time.
Yeah.
Because that's
or
all
if-
they handle at
Yeah.
that moment.
And the things when you tell them, all right, you got their attention now, grab that person, go.
Exactly.
They said, so they, oh, I got this person, oh, go. Okay. And now they go. And that's one of the things that people need to realize, that sometimes for some people that are in the frozen state, like, once you need something to, sometimes you need something to break that frozen mindset.
Mhm.
Sometimes you can talk to them slowly and softly like you do, but depending on the person, because everybody's different, and depending on the situation, sometimes they're just going to still stay in the fog until you break through just for a second, and you get their attention, like, and then you can talk slowly to them.
As a nurse, I would choose to talk slowly if it's possible. As a nurse, there's been times when mom's voice came out and said, "Stop."
Exactly. I mean, and that's the thing. You talk. You like you say. You talk. You do the, hey, we need to do this. You can nice and soft. If that doesn't work, you need to get their attention, because the longer they're frozen, you're dealing with them, you're being tied up and limiting who all else you can help,
Well, one of the
including
things they
yourself.
taught us in CERT was, that when we approach somebody that's frozen, we give them those very simple instructions, and then we kind of watch them take that first step. Once they've done that first step, then we move on to somebody else.
Yeah.
Because we don't have the time. There may be
Exactly.
30 others who need saving, and we can't spend our time on one at the expense of the other 30.
Yeah.
So you
basic
do what you can with
triage.
each one and then move on. Yeah. So here's a tougher question. How do we develop that mental capacity, that mental toughness, that preparation, knowing that that we're going to be in extremely austere, challenging, this is almost biblical, diabolical situations. How can we gain the fortitude, the mental fortitude now to be able to assist people once that happens? What are some of the mental exercises that we can do to strengthen ourselves?
My personal one is likely looking at situations. I mean, you see them on TV, you see them everywhere. Looking at situations and deliberately talking yourself down, because you get stressed even when you're seeing something like that. As a nurse, what ends up happening, and that's not always the case that happens to people. Sometimes when you're in the situation, you just act, and then when it's all over, you fall apart.
No.
That happens frequently, actually, and I think it's our training is, okay, if a person's having a situation where they're having trouble breathing or there's fight or something, you take care of business right now. And yes, that's important. But as nurses, we had to support and take care, kind of not hug each other exactly, but kind of be kind to each other after terrible situations, so that we could live through another situation. Otherwise, some people they would have a bad situation and they'd quit working. They'd never come back.
Yeah.
They couldn't come back. They couldn't face it anymore.
Well, I can't tell you how many times I quit or got fired driving an ambulance.
Oh, I bet. I mean, I've seen people hang themselves. We had a person who shoved toilet paper down the road and we couldn't save him.
Wow.
Couldn't save him. There's things like that happen. Or we had one patient trying to kill another patient. These things happen and they're very traumatic. And it's like, after it's over, I mean, you take care of business because you're trained. Do this if there's a breathing problem. Do this first. Do this second. Do this third. Do this fourth. That's your training. Boom, 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 boom. But then when the situation gets calm, everybody falls apart. That's kind of how it is.
We had a call to a hotel, and medical emergency type unknown. So we ran 3 in the ambulance, and got there, and it was a 400-pound woman taking a bath, had a heart attack.
Oh my gosh!
First, we had to get her out of the bathtub, And then and she was wet and soapy and, and all that kinds of stuff. And of course, it's against the wall. You don't have any leverage. So finally get her out of the bathtub. And now we try to do CPR. And there's an awful lot of tissue and fat between where my hand was and then the sternum and getting that depressed. So we're doing that. Had to get extender straps to get her onto the gurney and keep her on the gurney. We finally got her, and thank God there was a highway patrolman that was going to help us. We needed 4 people to get her into the ambulance. So I was up at the head, and the highway patrolman slipped and pushed the gurney and caught my hand in between the locking bar and the gurney. And so then we all that's over. And so I move over to the chest, and I'm doing the compressions. Well, the doctor who taught us to do the compressions taught us to do dashing through the snow in a 1-horse open sleigh. And so that's the beat count that we used. So she was a DOA. We knew it by the compression of the finger. But anyhow, state law says we can't do DOA. Only a coroner can DOA. And so got her to the hospital. They declared her. And her husband sued us and said that I didn't do anything to try to save her life. All I did was fondle her breasts and sing Christmas songs all the way to the hospital. And so what I didn't realize, because of all the adrenaline, was I had broken 3 metacarpals on my hand when that gurney slammed up against the locking bar. And I'm giving CPR with a broken hand and didn't feel it because of the adrenaline.
You don't feel that sort of thing in that emergency. You just don't. You just keep going. And I've been injured and didn't realize it till later too, as it happens, it just happens.
Yeah.
Your training takes over.
Absolutely.
Your original question was how do you get your mindset ahead of time and for a situation to be able to deal with it. One of the things has to for me goes back to my core beliefs in God. This world is just a temporary. This world is kindergarten. It's only for a short period of time. It doesn't last all eternity. So you can't save everybody. You can't save most of the people. People are going to die. People are going to live. It's not your fault. You learn that from the very beginning. And when I went through the academy, everyone was shocked that I say, you can't save everybody. You can't do that. You just accept the fact that, hey, all right, it's out of my hands. I do what I can do. It's not my fault if I can't save a person. I am not Jesus. I am not the Father.
No.
So you get that in your mind first, then then that relieves a lot of stress. There are also some great. I wish I could remember. I got them saved on the other computer. Post-traumatic stress disorder training videos to deal with the stress and stuff as well.
Exactly. And
pros. That's another thing to do is start viewing some of these things that'll help you to understand what you're going to be going through, and here's one of the big things: accept that you can't do that. You can say all other stuff, but you have to accept deeply that you have limitations. You're not Superman. You're not, Wonder Woman. You can only do so much, and then learn and take these training videos and stuff and courses that'll teach you how to deal with it. Even a lot of people go, "Well, it's psycho mumble jumble." No, it's not. You need to learn, and if you get that training done first, then you can deal with a lot of the problems a little bit easier. And that's one of the things when I first started out, when I put through the academy, I put myself through, went to work for the sheriff's department, and I mentioned to a lieutenant, and he had me come talk to the captain, and then he had me go up and talk to the sheriff. And I had a 2-hour talk with the sheriff about this, and he was like, "That's interesting." I go, "Who do you have here that's been in combat? You got several deputies like that? Talk to them about this too." And then about 3 months later, they came out with a plan to get training for the deputies to deal with the after effects. And then they had their plan set up to do pre-training for dealing with the stuff.
And then they have to brief afterwards as well.
Yes, you have the debrief and everything else going through it. But the thing is, there was to get the deputies' minds around the fact that bad shit happens and it's not your fault.
Yeah.
People think that,
welcome.
Yeah. Hi. People think that mental health is all curable. Mental health can also be a terminal condition, because we get a fair number of people that commit suicide and or don't care for themselves, and then they become ill, physically ill. But they put themselves in terrible situations and get hurt that way. So, we lose quite a few people. It's kind of shocking. I think people come into the situation not realizing that is a real possibility. You're going to lose patients. You are going to lose patients.
Well, and I think that's one of the things we're going to have to accept as inevitable
Yes.
in the coming whatever, is that there are going to be people who are going to not going to make it. There are people who are going to suffer immensely, both physically as well as emotionally, mentally, and that we cannot. There's a story. I forget his name. He's a futurist, and when I was training 7 Habits, we used his films. But he tells the story of a guy who is walking down a beach and he sees somebody dancing ballet further down the beach. And as he approaches, he finds out that the guy's not doing ballet, but he's actually looks like he's throwing something into the ocean. And so as he gets up closer, it's a guy running over as the tide's going out and picking up starfish left on the sand and picking them up and throwing them back into the sea. He says, "What are you doing?" He says, "Well, that starfish will basically die unless I get it back in the water. So I'm throwing it back in the water." He says, "You're so insignificant. There are so many starfish and there's only you. Why do you even try? What does it matter?" And he picks up another starfish and throws it in the sea and says, "It mattered to that one." And I think that's going to be the prevailing philosophy that we're going to have is saving one person at a time. That we won't be able to do mass casualty assistance. We won't be able to do mass salvation or mass anything. It's going to be a one-on-one relationship with other people who are affected, and we have a positive influence on them. Now, I want to make a statement. I want to get your opinions on this. My personal opinion is that the best way to prepare mentally for what's going to happen are 2 steps. Number 1, acknowledge the fact that it's going to be terrible. And so number 1, accept the reality that it's not going to be all roses. It's not going to be even as good as The Walking Dead. Number 2, the way for you to focus on surviving is to pick a skill that is going to be essential in a post-apocalyptic world and focus on learning that skill to the best of your abilities now, so that regardless the circumstances, you're capable of performing that skill, so that it becomes autonomic. Whatever it is, whether it be water purification, whether it be guard duty, whether it be gardening, you have to pick something that you can focus your energy on and use that as your roots of sanity, if you will, in an insane world. So what are your thoughts about that?
I've always said some people take Prozac, I garden. So there you go.
Okay, so you're pretty much in line with that.
Yes.
I would expand it a little bit, though.
Okay.
On the picking one skill, I would pick a primary skill that have a couple support skills.
Okay.
That way it's like gardening. Okay, gardening's good. Then what? Well, canning Then I can can the garden. Take it to the next step of canning or preserving what you grew. Okay, so I need to know canning that. Then I need to know a little bit about food rotation. So you start with gardening, and then I also need to know about not just growing the food, but weather patterns to be able to know when to start gardening and how to read the weather and everything else. So, I'm saying you start with gardening and you start. I need this skill here a little bit to help the gardening. You need that skill there to help with the
Peripheral
gardening.
support.
Yeah, and so basically it's a spider web.
Yeah.
And you pick the most important strand and you start working the strands off of it.
Thank you, Little Lone Prepper. Thank you.
I think also on Gil, I think there's another thing. I think you need to develop friendships or partnerships with others that have skills in your area and who have other skills together so that you can work as a team. And I think
Networking.
that's huge. I mean, I'm a gardener. I do all that stuff. But if I didn't have neighbors to help out, maybe they can grow something I can't grow, or maybe they can have a stove that works when mine doesn't. I don't know. It doesn't matter. It's whatever they've got, whatever skill they've got will definitely make my skills better because we will work together. So
one of the things that along that line is once the event has happened and you're to the point, okay, where you have survived and you start using your skill and stuff, don't stop there. Now's the time that now you got all these people with different skills. Say, hey, can you teach me your skill too?
Hey, Gil, which button do I push so I show your names on here?
All right, all right, on the right, you need to eliminate the comment where it says, or just click on our comment. It just jumped up. So you need to, over there on the chat, it'll say hide current comment or whatever. Or just click on anybody's comment that you can see. Click on a comment.
Okay.
You're going to highlight a comment.
Huh?
Now click on it again. There we go.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah. So the thing to, but there is something else I wanted to touch on here. I see the time here. Most preppers kind of touch on this a little bit, but for the most part, most of them are like this. After this, all right, pick an event. The grid's gone down. We're 3 weeks in. The grid's gone down for 3 weeks. What is going to be the major problem that we have to face? Those that have died. 3 months in, there's going to be a lot more people dead. There's also going to be those that had died immediately that were just coming across. That's going to be hard mentally to go in and say, load them up. Let's get them out. Let's get them buried. Think about that now. Don't push that away. That is going to happen on a major Milwaukee event.
I try to stress that as often and as much as I can. It's the dirty things. To me, the one thing that gets me going are odors. And I had to transport a burn victim once, and there is nothing on earth that smells as bad as a burn victim. I mean, it took me 3 weeks to air the ambulance out. I couldn't get rid of the smell. And if you've ever smelled a burn victim, you will never forget that smell. And it's just something so odors. I transported. We did a transport of a guy who was on chemo too. And he wanted us to put a bedpan under him in the ambulance. And I said, nah, not on the freeway. We're not going to do that. But it took us a couple of days to air the van out after that, too, the ambulance. Yeah. And, but to me, it's odors. And so you're going to have obnoxious odors from decomposing bodies, as well as people who don't know how to take care of sewage
Sanitation.
problems, because you aren't going to have the common flush toilet after this is all over. So I think if people can start preparing themselves for the fact that this is not going to be Pollyanna. This is going to be an atrocious world filled with obnoxious odors, with discomfort, whether the discomfort be heat, humidity, tired.
Flies.
Say again?
Flies.
Insects, and rodents.
Yeah.
If you're afraid of rodents now, wait, because it's gonna be terrible. And so I think the more we can prepare ourselves that that's going to be the new reality, the better off we're going to be. And you know what? Just 3 generations ago, that was normality.
Mm-hmm.
And so we've got to kind of prepare ourselves for that. Well, we're down to about the last 5 minutes. Any closing thoughts, guys, before we wrap this up?
My thought is that everybody needs to take as much good care of their mental health as they do their physical health. It is super important.
Yeah. Talking about physical health, my number 3 grandson, I got 4 grandsons, has been watching a TV show that I have on DVD, an anime one called Dragon Ball, and he's just fixated on everything that the 13-year-old boy Goku can do. And today he goes, "How can I be like that?" I go, "All right, I'm going to teach you how to do jumping jacks." Had never seen jumping jacks done yet. He was in preschool. He'll be in kindergarten next year. All right, so I was teaching him jumping jacks. I was teaching him how to do push-ups. Tomorrow we're going to do sit-ups. Now I got to do the stuff with him. So what's that doing for me? That's helping me loosen my joints up and getting my butt more exercise even more. And so I'm demonstrating to him, he's helping and he's doing it. I'm showing him what he's doing wrong and tell him it's not a problem. You're learning. You've never done this before. So, and we've worked with it. I showed him some videos of Marines doing push-ups. And he's like, "Oh, okay." And he's down on the floor looking at the video, trying to do the push-ups like the Marines. So it's one of the things is, prep yourself physically, prep yourself mentally, prep yourself emotionally.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And
More gotta work on.
Go ahead, say again.
You've got to add the spiritual part as well.
Absolutely.
To me, that's part of the emotional. I get my emotional strength.
Well,
as a matter of fact, let me grab my St. Faustina bag here. Just a minute.
While I stepped out, there's one thing I'll show you. I just forgot it again. There was something I was going to say, and I just forgot it again. But yeah, there's just there are so many things we can do. Don't get overwhelmed with everything you have to do and learn, because you're not going to learn it all. You just learn one thing at a time. It's like that old Bass Rankin Christmas one, Santa Claus is Coming to Town, where Kris Kringle runs into the Winter Warlock, and he gives the Winter Warlock a choo-choo train, and his heart starts melting. He goes, "I don't know how to be good." Well, it's simple. Take one step at a time. And he gets him walking across. He starts. I'm not going to do the song here because I want him to get a strike, but you take one step. So you're walking across the floor, and soon you're walking out the door, and it goes through the song and the whole thing like that. You learn one skill at a time.
Well, I'm not finding what I was looking for. It must have had to be in a different bag. I've got one bag for my Bible class. I got one bag for my St. Faustina's Divine Mercy every Friday morning. Amazon's trying to make a delivery, and the dogs are getting anxious about it. But anyhow, I do want to add one more thought to close this out, and that is frustration and anxiety. So frustration and anxiety, Lee's definition is you have an expectation and then you have reality. And there's a gap in between what your expected results are and the reality or the accomplishments that you've achieved. Okay. So in that gap in between the two is where you have either anxiety or a frustration that you didn't accomplish everything you wanted to. So we need to close that gap. And I think that's the number one thing we need to focus on in our lives is how do we close that gap of frustration and anxiety? So we can do a couple things. We can either strive harder to close that gap by moving our performance up. We can narrow the gap by setting our standards a little bit lower, okay? And then increasing our efforts to come up to that gap. And then once we do it, we raise our standards back up to the next level up so that we're constantly, and this is kind of like the Hegelian dialectic in a sense, that we're constantly improving, reestablishing new goals and meeting new achievable goals. So for me, that's how I plan on doing it. I realize I really want to be up here, but I'm not going to get there overnight. So I'm going to set a goal for here today. And as soon as I accomplish it, I'm going to set a next goal higher and higher and higher until I achieve my higher goal. Now that higher goal may be something physical. It may be something spiritual. It may be something skill or knowledge or ability wise. But, constantly assess yourself. What is the cause of your frustration and anxiety? And how can you close that gap between where you want to be and where you currently are? Okay. And I would like for the two of you to stay on so that I can chat with you afterwards in the background when we close this out. But the book of Numbers, chapter 6, verses 24, 25, 26. The Lord bless you and keep you. The Lord let his face shine upon you and be gracious to you. The Lord look upon you kindly and give you peace. So one of the things I would like to encourage all of you to do is remember, if we could just create a family here on YouTube, if we can support each other, if we can help each other through this, if we can determine what things we need and how others can help us achieve that, or determine what others need and how we can help them achieve it, I think that's going to be one of the greatest things that we can do for our fellow man. So thank you so much for being so kind and polite to each other. Remember to be kind, polite, and respectful to anyone and everyone you encounter. There's not only the sins of commission, there's also the sins of omission. And I felt really bad. I was running late for my appointment at physical therapy this morning, and there was a lady obviously walking to work. And, I probably should have stopped and offered her a ride. So I feel that I let a fellow human down by not offering them a ride this morning. So, what can you do to reach out and put a smile on somebody else's face today or tomorrow? So with that, remember, we're all in this together so we can come out the other side together. Please be kind, polite, and respectful to each other because the only way we're going to get through this is together. Take care, everybody. Bye-bye.